Estate disputes and prenuptial agreements. Examination in chief and cross-examination of Richard SHMERE.
All rise. The Honorable Justice Ayton. Oyez, oyez, oyez. Anyone having business before the Queen's Justice of the Superior Court of Justice, draw near and ye shall be heard. Long live the Queen. Be seated.
Ms. Stevens.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Are you ready for me to begin, Your Honor?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Has the witness been sworn in, Mr. Registrar?
Okay. As this matter is entirely fictional and bears no resemblance at all to any matter previously existing or currently existing before the courts, so you solemnly affirm not to give the truth and to testify falsely in nothing but an entertaining matter?
I do.
Thank you.
I doubt that, actually. Now, Mr. SHMERE, Richard, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, I think so, Ms. Stevens. I'm a little, obviously I'm very emotional, a little nervous.
Okay, well, if you need to take a break, just let me know.
Thank you.
We're here today because you initiated claims against the estate of your late wife, Yenta.
Yeah, that's correct. When you say initiate claims, I don't like to frame it that way. I'm just trying to protect myself going forward. So initiate claims really upsets me, given the close relationship I have with my beautiful wife.
Yes, and I understand you got married in 2009?
Yeah, that's correct. We met on a cruise. We called it the Love Boat because we went every year thereafter. It was our thing to do. We love cruises.
And she passed away quite suddenly last year?
Yeah, she passed away in, again, we were on a cruise and we'd been up on the dance floor all night, and we went back to the cabin, and that's when Yenta passed away. It was the worst night of my life.
And can you describe a little bit for the court your relationship with Yenta, your marriage, what you did?
We met back in 2009 on a cruise. I'd been a soccer player for many years, and I was on the cruise as part of a soccer organisation. And I was sitting at the captain's table, and I was introduced to Yenta. And from the minute I met her, I know it sounds a little silly, but it really was love at first sight. I was besotted by her. She was just such a beautiful lady in every way, so adventurous, so much energy, made me laugh constantly. It was we just fell in love within days.
Well, she sounds like a lovely woman.
Yeah, she really was. I miss her dearly.
Now, I notice, Richard, that you're trembling a little bit.
Yeah.
How's the state of your health?
It's not very good, Ms. Stevens. Over the last several years, I have a diagnosis called CTE. I can't even pronounce the whole name. It's the doctors just tell me that it makes me tremble. I get tremors, very nervous, and my memory's awful. And when Yenta and I first became aware of this, she took me to the best doctors, and I've been on some medication, but unless I can continue to get this medication, the outlook isn't bright, and the professionals tell me that I'm going to die a young man. So I'm terrified.
And so you say it's affecting your ability to concentrate or focus. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's even right now I feel really I just feel overwhelmed, and I get really confused from time to time, and so forgive me if I have to stop or take a break. It's just part of the condition.
Okay, well, we'll try and go slowly.
Yeah.
Not too slowly.
I appreciate that. Now, one of the reasons we're here is because of what was left to you from Yenta's estate. Can you tell me what you know about Yenta's estate and what was left to you from her assets?
Yeah, we didn't talk about finances an awful lot when she was alive. We just spent like drunken sailors, and she always told me, "Don't worry, Richard, everything will be fine. I have plenty for both of us." And then when she died, I was advised that she'd left me $1 million through a life insurance policy, and that her estate was going to her 2 children. So that concerned me a little bit because of my health. So I worry for the future. But the lawyers and the economists tell me that her estate was quite large, and on that terrible night when she passed away, her last words were, "You should get the company." So hopefully that means something. I don't understand all this legal mumbo jumbo, so I just hope I'm going to be taken care of, and that's why I'm here today.
And when she passed away and said those fateful words to you, was there anyone else present at that time? Were there witnesses?
There may have been a couple of people on the cruise ship, but I'm not really sure. I was so upset and so devastated that everything's just a blur to me.
Now, when you got married, you did have some money of your own, did you not?
Yeah, as I say, I had a good career as a football player. I guess a soccer player, as you call it over here. Although, when Jens and I met, I had about 1.4 million in the bank. And I was pretty frivolous, and I was hoped that would last me for the rest of my life. And I have an okay pension, $80,000 a year from the Football Association. But this illness that I didn't expect is just taking all the money. My resources just being drained, and of course, Jens and I, we spent heavily when she was alive. It was a whirlwind. We lived a very exciting lifestyle.
Okay, and you said that you're not quite sure how much is in Jens' estate. Is that right?
Well, the lawyers had explained to me that there just seems to be, with the company and the house and some of her other assets. They said that Jens has left a very large estate, maybe around 17 million. But again, I'm not really. Money wasn't really the issue. I don't really understand it too much. And Jens and I just had a good time. But I'm told that she has a big estate, and hopefully there's enough there to look after me as my illness takes over.
Now, skipping ahead just a little bit, I understand that one of the things that you're trying to do is set aside an agreement, a prenuptial agreement that you and Jens signed before you got married. Can you tell me a little bit about how that came to be, when you signed it, what it says?
That was a crazy day. It was the morning of our wedding day, and we were running around and taking care of the bridal party, and making sure that the suit and tie looked good and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, the son just put this agreement in front of Jens and I and said, well, you guys need to sign this agreement, otherwise there's not going to be a marriage today. And we were both taken aback, and I didn't really understand what it meant at the time. They just said it's what's called a prenuptial agreement to do with finances. And
you talk about the 2 kids. There wasn't going to be a wedding today. What was their reaction to you and Jens getting married?
They weren't happy. The son, Evan in particular, he really didn't like me. I don't know whether it was because I'd been a famous soccer player back in the day, but he thought I was with his mum for money. He made that perfectly clear, and that was never the case. I was besotted by Jenta. I still am. She was the love of my life, and it's really emotional just talking about her. So him and I really tried to reach out to him and Zelda and have a good relationship, but it was just it was a difficult situation.
Yeah, and you said that the agreement was given to you by Irwin about 2 hours before you got married. Did you have a chance to review it in detail, get legal advice on it, see exactly what was in it?
Not really. He gave me the agreement. I think it was 2 hours, maybe a few hours. I'm not sure. It's all very confusing. But Jens came to me and said, Richard, you have to sign this agreement. And I said, well, whatever you need, love. I'll do whatever it takes just for us to be married. So her big concern was, she said, sign this agreement, because if you don't sign the agreement, My children, they've told me that they don't agree with the wedding and they're never going to let me see the grandchildren ever again. So that was the problem. So I just went along with Yenta, and you know, the one thing is, part of my wedding party, a good friend of mine from law school, see, my memory's so bad, I can't even remember his name, but he went through the agreement with me quickly and explained it to me. It's all a bit of a blur, and Yenta said, don't worry, just sign the agreement and it will all be fine. It will all be fine. You know, as I said, I've got lots of money and we'll look after each other. So I just went ahead and signed the agreement. I didn't really understand it in fine detail. I'm not into financial things. I'm a soccer player.
Okay, seeing as we have a lot of time left, Richard, I'm just going to cut a little bit to your current expenses and your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now, later on, and it's been filed with the court, an expert's report indicating that you need about $3.75 million in order to manage your expenses for the balance of either your shortened or your natural life. I want to go into your expenses. Can you give me some information about your current lifestyle, where you're living, things of that nature?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm living a very modest lifestyle. I have a small condominium with a mortgage on it. It's quite expensive to run. And then I have this crazy Lamborghini that Yenta, you know, she talked me into buying this when she was alive, because her previous husband, they'd always drove around in a Bentley. So she was accustomed to being in a nice vehicle. So we got this Lambo and we raced around in it. And you know, and here I am now with this illness. I can barely afford the medication, and I'm driving around in this expensive car, which I've tried to return, but I just can't return it to the leasing company because it will cost me too much money to give it back. So, you know, other than that expense, it's the condominium, and it's the medication that's expensive, and you know, just day-to-day expenses, and my finances have really dwindled since Yenta passed away.
And you used to live in I assume in Yenta's house, a very large house in Forest Hill?
Yeah, well, as I say, we lived in you know, when I look back now, the house that we lived in, it was a mansion. It was a beautiful big house. We had all the luxuries, you know, swimming pools, hot tubs, big parties every weekend. We shopped at all the nice stores, and now I'm in my 1,000 square foot condo with barely any money to spend, and you know, I can barely afford to put gas into the Lamborghini month to month and pay the insurance. I just don't know what I'm going to do.
Okay, I thank you very much, Richard. I'm now going to let Mr. Hull cross-examine you. Remember, he's quite a vicious person, so if you need a break, let me know.
Yeah, I'll likely need a break once he starts to confuse me.
Richard, can I just suggest you sit up here just to make yourself more comfortable?
Yeah.
Sorry, your name?
Ian Hull.
How do you spell that?
I'm not wearing a vest because I wanted the free-flowing cross-examination, and that's nothing to do with the fact that I forgot to grab it this morning.
It's not that it doesn't still fit, is it?
Well, that could be true. So now we're going to. I'm in a bit of a rush. I got to get to the herring station. That is one thing I gotta get back to. Thanks again, Jules, and that's the kind of food group that I appreciate. So, Richard, you're here to protect yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm here to hopefully be able to, you know, protect myself as my medical condition worsens.
And you, of course, at the age of 41, went on the seniors cruise, and that's when you first met Yenta.
Well, as I say, it wasn't so much a seniors cruise. It was with the Football Association. So all the retired footballers were there and managers, and so yeah, I guess it was. We went on a cruise, and that's where I met my beautiful wife.
If I suggest to you, sir, that this was not an athletic cruise, and in fact, the weight limit for any females coming on the cruise was 300 pounds and over. Isn't that correct?
I'm not too sure about the details. I'm confused with the criteria.
There was a height restriction for any females at 5 feet.
Well, you know, Yenta was she was a small lady.
So you met, and it was the
heart.
Love Boat. It was the Love Boat, wasn't it?
Well, that's what we call it, the Love Boat. That was our name for it.
That's right. And it was just an endless stream of love. And in fact, you had lots of choice for love on that cruise, didn't you?
Well, you know, as I said to the Miss Stevens, I only had eyes for one lady, and that was Yenta.
You're a pro soccer player, or your has-been pro soccer player.
I was good back in the day, Mr. Hull. If you want to check out the highlight reels on YouTube, you'll see I was quite the player.
I know you stopped a lot of goals with your head.
Well, I got hit quite a few times, and some of those games I can barely remember.
All right, and you're suffering from a disease that you yourself can't even say out loud because it's confusing words. So I think that the actual term from the medical dictionaries is ceased trying to be employed, CTE. Isn't that correct?
I think that's a little harsh, Mr. Hull. It's you know, this is very emotional for me, and you know, this is really upsetting me. I may need to, if you continue along these lines, I may need to take a break.
I'm good with that. And you've also told the court, though, that you've been told you're going to die a young man.
Well, that's my fear. I need to get this medication because without the proper professionals and the medication, I'm told by the experts that, you know, my life could be shortened, and I just hope that's not the case.
But in your examination in chief, you didn't say that. You said that you've been told by the doctors you're going to die a young man.
Well, yeah, they said I could if I'm not looked after properly.
I see. So we got a short window here to deal with you, right? You got $1 million and you got a short lifespan, right?
Well, if I'm looked after, hopefully it's a long lifespan.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the way you and your former wife dealt with your money. You dealt with your money as strictly your money was yours, her money was hers, correct?
Yeah, we kept our finances separate, and right. I really tried to keep up with my wife's fast lifestyle.
And you know and you understood that whenever you spent money, it was your money.
Yeah, you know, I spent my money. I tried to pay my way. I'm a gentleman, so we always tried to, you know, split bills and keep expenses even when I was, you know,
right.
to the best of my abilities.
And that's certainly what your wife understood that you would do during your lifetime and expect to do after lifetime, subject to the $1 million.
Well, she'd always told me that, don't worry, Richard, I have enough for both of us, but she never did tell me exactly what it was she had.
Well, except you didn't live that way, did you? You didn't live that way. You lived the way that you described it. That was just share the expenses. You paid for yours, she paid for hers.
As I say, it was a shared, fast lifestyle of extravagance.
And on the share transfer, you remember, of course, that in November 7th, 2014, your wife had already given the shares to her children. Yeah,
she'd come to me and she said, Richard, I'm going to give these shares of the company to my kids. She said, you know, you and I are busy traveling the world and having fun, and I'll give them the company. They can run the company. The company's doing well. And I said, sure, Jens, that makes sense to me because what do I know about running SHMERE?
But you also knew by November that you didn't own the she no longer owned the shares.
Well, yeah, she said that she was going to give the shares away to the kids. And
she did that, and you knew that, and you understood that, and you understood the effect of that.
I did, but she was always back and forth with this, you know, the shares of the company. It was, you know, as I said to you before, two siblings, they didn't like me, and they kept threatening that, you know, if they didn't sort out the finances and leave with the shares, she wasn't going to see her grandchildren, and she loved her grandchildren, and she wanted to visit them often. So it was always a bit of a tug of war for Yenta. You know, she loved and adored me, but the grandchildren were right there on the same sort of level as I was.
All right, so you mentioned the grandchildren, but of course, you know that neither of her children had any children.
Well, I'd never met the grandchildren. I believe they existed.
Well, they certainly don't exist in the fact situation.
Oh, okay.
And that you also know that when the oy vey moment came on the deathbed of your wife, that at that point in time, she didn't have any shares to give you because she'd already given them to her children, right? You knew that.
I knew that, but she told me the last words were, "I want you to have the company." I don't understand all this, so I don't know what that means. That's why I'm here today, trying to figure all this out and take care of myself.
You're here today to protect yourself, like you were protecting yourself when you walked on the cruise at age 41, looking for over 300 pounders, right?
That's just, we all have, we all have different perspectives on what's beautiful, and All
right, so let's talk about the contract. You have been through a series of contracts as a head-stopping goalie in a soccer/football, who cares what you call it, league. That's what you did for a living. You would sign contracts for big money.
Well, I always had advisors around me that would deal with that for me, and I think that was one of the mistakes I made there. I've never really understood contracts or finances. I let the professionals do that for me, and I guess that's why I retired with very little in the bank. Advisors
like lawyers?
Well, usually, agents and, lawyers sometimes, but I never really met them. I had people that did that for me.
And you had some of those people you liked quite a bit, and you were friendly with your advisors as you went through the soccer league and entered into those contracts.
Yeah, but I was always, I always tried to keep a good relationship with the advisors and treated some of them as friends, which seems to be a mistake in my professional career, and now I'm worried that it was a mistake again, talking to friends and letting them advise me.
Your friend and a lawyer advised you on a contract, one of the many contracts that you'd signed in your lifetime, and one of the many contracts that you intended to be bound by, correct?
Well, I was told, every time I signed the contract over the years, I was told, don't worry, everything will be okay. And as I said, it's not my, my expertise is was heading a soccer ball, and now I can barely do that anymore.
Sir, when you played for Liverpool and stopped the ball with your head, you knew you couldn't walk out of that dressing room and go play for Barcelona in an instant. You needed to get out of a contract before you did that. You knew that much, right?
Yeah, well, I knew my agent would have to deal with things, if Barcelona come knocking on the door, which they never did. But, we'd probably had to deal with the contract or break a contract, and I'd have let my agent deal with that for me.
Right, and you never broke a contract when you were a head-stopping goalie, and you don't break contracts now that you signed with your loving wife, right?
Well, as I say, I have no way to turn. I'm running out of money, and I need medication to survive and to live, and Jens had promised me everything would be okay.
But when you say to survive and live, it's not like you're exactly eating herring every day. You're eating good food and delicious, endless supply of it, aren't you?
It's hard to pay the bills. As I said, this Lamborghini takes up so much of the money, and this is probably the best breakfast I've had in a month.
All right, but you got very little time to live. You've got expenses that will not even come close to exceeding your $1 million. And in fact, that Lamborghini on the thing called eBay could be sold in 10 minutes. You know that, right?
Well, it's a lease, so I don't even own the Lamborghini. As I say,
the lease could be transferred in a minute, and you know that.
Mr. Hull, I've tried, but nobody wants it.
All right. Well, look, sir, I think at the end of the day, Your Honor, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Richard, you were asked about breaking the contract and breaking contracts and being bound by them. Would your agents, or did your agents, you referred to them as advisors, Did they ever give you a contract to sign that was prepared 2 hours before you were to start playing?
No, usually sometimes they'd be in contract negotiations for, for months on end, negotiating terms of contracts, and that's why I left it to them. It was a big, cumbersome, expensive process to deal with.
So these contracts, if I'm paraphrasing, were negotiated over an extended period of time?
Yeah, from what I understand and remember, yeah, that's the case.
So your agent would put forth his views on what you would be entitled to, and the club would put forth its views, and you'd eventually arrive at a consensus?
Yeah, that's usually the way that we dealt with it, yeah.
And is that what happened with the agreement that you were presented with to sign just before your wedding?
No, not. It was all, as I said told you, it was all very rush, and I was too busy dealing with the flower arrangements and whether the dinner was going to be okay and the vows at the ceremony, that I didn't even really have time to go through this contract. But I didn't want to upset Jens in any way, and I loved her so much, and we just wanted to be married.
Okay. And do you know who prepared that contract?
I'm not really sure. It might have been the son, I think, that prepared the contract.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. You're excused.